looking at the second section of the 13 postures. Right. So second section, we have, I'll do it facing this way. We're here, then we do drag down, brush knee, and play the pipa. Right. So those are 3 elements of the second section of the 13 postures. So first, notice once again, no stepping back. We're still doing half steps. I'm here, my right foot is forward. I'm here, my right foot is still forward. And even I come here, right foot still forward. So I haven't taken a full step yet. This is the second section, so 2/3 of the 13 postures, we're not taking full steps, we're taking half steps. Same foot is forward. So that means that it's a way of being in your fighting position, essentially, right? Because if you're in your basic defensive position, you're here, it's moving without changing, without switching, having to switch which side is forward. So in this case, my right hand is forward, right foot forward, right? So from here, whether it's drag down, brush knee, or play the pipa, even when I shift back onto that rear leg, I'm immediately back onto that front foot. Not that the weight is on the front foot, but the foot is pointing front. So again, not stepping back, not taking full steps, so we're not shifting. We're learning how to keep our fighting stance and moving through space, right, without stepping. So again, it's this moving into the space of our opponent. Now, if we look at the very beginning here of yank, or dragged out, we start seeing that there's this kind of shift and slide out of the way, right? So we're here, a punch comes, we deflect, but not only do we deflect, but we shift. And something that we see at the beginning of the first section, right? Because the first section, we're here, and the first thing we do is this, right? That's sitting down on the rear leg. Notice that what happens is if my shoulder was being targeted, by sitting on that rear leg, I pivot, I create space. Here it's the exact same thing. I create space. This was going to be the point of impact, and I shift and sidestep. So even without hands, right, I move out of the way. So we need to think of that as, so it's another hint as to what the mechanism is of Tai Chi, or some of the practice, right? This idea of sidestepping. And notice that it's not just stepping to the side. We are shifting and then stepping in. So get out of the way and then step into the opponent's space. So that's going to be a core skill that we're going to keep seeing happening. This idea of shift, getting out of the way, shift, getting out of the way, getting out of the way. So here, it's the stepping, it's the shifting of the weight that moves the body and removes you from the line of force. Notice, again, it's not a step back. It's not a full step back that removes me from the line of force that's coming towards me. Instead, it's a shift. It's a skip. It's a move. It's a move. All right? So it's much smaller than a full step. So that's going to be our second point. One of the skills that we need to develop as Tai Chi practitioners is this sidestepping, right? This turn, or even shift and step, right? Turn and step as a way of receiving power. So when we receive power, we don't step back necessarily, we evade. Step to the side, turn to the side, turn to the side. We see that also in Grasp the Sparrow's Tail, which is here. Right? It's a small version of that same idea of sitting back. Sitting back. Notice this point of impact, I sit back and I create a negative space. Again, I'm not stepping back, I'm using the hips. So this move here, right, is the same escape as if I did this for this shoulder, right? I can't do it, so without stepping back, I can't do it. So I sit down, turn the hips, or I turn, or I turn, or I turn and step, or I turn and step, right? Again, all movements that keep you within the fighting space. You're not retreating, you're turning. So that's going to be our second main skill to develop. So the first one is keeping within the fighting space of the opponent, not stepping back. The second one is rotating, essentially, stepping, sidestepping, sidestepping, sidestepping. So that's something that we should be doing in our push hands, right? So when you're pushing and pushing and pushing, we should start, in a way, giving ourselves the freedom to turn, right? Turn, and develop that skill of moving out of the way by using your feet and turning the body to escape that. So, second section. We're still in the second section. We've done, I'm scaring the birds. I come here, yank, and push. Now, one thing I want to point out is that, so yank, or pluck, is here. Right here, that's the pluck. Everything else is part of drag down. But drag down is a composite move composed out of roll back, pluck, push. But pluck works in many different ways. It's not just yanking downwards. So one of the applications here is that this knee going up could be a knee strike. That is less interesting than looking at here and thinking that this is pluck going upwards. So here I pluck upwards with the knee, and then I pluck downwards with the hand, right? Meaning I've grabbed my opponent and I pluck down. Or I've stepped and I use the knee to lift the leg of my opponent, and then I push, right? So that's going to reveal one of the core ideas, I think, in a lot of the moves that we do, which is that we are using our legs in order to destabilize our opponent, right? And once you see it, once you have that idea in your head, you see it everywhere in the form. All of the stepping that we do are actually ways of stepping into the space of your opponent and then just doing messy things to their legs. So whether it's stepping in and then just pushing against the knee, against the ankle, against the hip, what you're doing is you're creating instability. And then that instability is then used with a push. So it's not necessarily, it's not a kill move. It's not that you're using your leg and then that's it, the throw is done. Is that I lift, gets them off balance, and then I push using the unbalance. So we now have this idea of the knee, right, coming up and being used as a weapon. Not as a striking weapon, but as, in a way, as a wrestling weapon. So that means that when we're here, right, if I'm pushing just with the legs, my foot is here, I'm hunting for my opponent's leg, and then I pick it up, right? And that is followed immediately with this push here, but the push, notice my hand doesn't go past my foot. So I'm here, this is a slightly wider stance than we usually have. I'm pushing off the rear leg, but notice that my thigh here, if I had done here this big step and then expanded, that means that my thigh is really against my opponent's leg as well. So we have this point here, I pick up somebody's leg and then I step in. So where's my thigh if I'd just done that? It's now underneath my opponent's leg. This becomes a wedge, right? So now we have again this idea of a big step that comes in, the thigh becomes a wedge. I'm now moving my opponent's leg, right? If I were to step behind them, they would be pushed, right? So that's why also here we have this. I pick up the foot and then take a big step. Well, why am I picking up the foot, taking a big step? Because if the other guy's standing here, I want to go around his knee, his leg that's in front, place my foot behind his, and then whoop, use the thigh as a wedge to move that leg. Again, it's just a small move, but then I just have to do a small push and the guy falls down. So we having this leg used, so first going up or going forward, right? The leg is being used as a wedge or as a way of attacking the opponent's leg. Not striking, but moving the opponent's leg. And that's followed with brush knee. So now again, we have this big step here. What's the purpose of the big step? We're going fishing for the other guy's foot. I'm going forward, and I'm going to put my leg and my ankle next to his, so then when I'm here, right, I'm tripping him over my foot. I'm brushing his knee, my foot is in the way, and he falls to the side. But this can also be all sorts of nasty tricks where you can push with the front of the leg against your opponent's leg and basically hyperextend their knee, and then that is followed by a push. So again, we're using that big step in order to attack the opponent's legs, right? So we're using the legs in an active way. We're attacking, we're moving, we're attacking. The legs are not just supporting us, we're attacking the opponent. And one of the reasons why we want to have that cat stance, right? So mostly rear-legged, because it means that the front leg is free. So not only is it free, which means it's harder to sweep the foot or anything like that. If your opponent tries to do something, your leg is free, you're still balanced. But it means we have that front leg to do all sorts of nasty things to our opponent. We can lift, right? We can shift, or we can kick, but we can do all these things because we're solid on that rear leg. So that's why we want to have that rear-legged stance and that free front foot. Right? So that these applications kind of explain why we have the stance that we have in the hidden tradition. So this rear-legged stance, it gives you the foot as a tool. So we have this idea that the first one is that we want to stay in our opponent's fighting space. We also want to make sure that we sidestep, we shift, we turn as a way of evading the power that is given to us, right? We turn, we don't step back, we turn around it. Turn in the hip, turn in the foot, turn in the foot, turn in sidestep. And the third one is, right, for now, is that the leg, the front leg, is used in order to attack the leg of our opponent, that we're going after the leg, we're using the knee, the thigh, right, in order to attack the opponent. Remember that also this, so one of the definition of a shoulder strike, another translation is bump, because that heavy, short attack can also be done with the hip. You can do, boom, that's also shoulder strike or bump, right? But that means that this is also bump, right? So it's a short, heavy attack that's down here, except that you're using your thigh muscle in order to do it, right? So that's a bump. So you're expressing those 8 energies, these 8 gates, or the 8 basic moves of Tai Chi in different ways through different parts of the body, right? So that's what we see. Now, here at the end, we have Play the Pipa. And Play the Pipa has a cool step, right, which is here to here and then back to front. So it's side step, turn, sit, back to front. And that should remind us of the first half step that we saw in the first section of the 13 postures, where we're here, sit back, and step. So now we're coming here, sit back, but to the diagonal, and then step. So it's same thing, except we're adding a turn. So we're mixing the linear stepping and that escape that we were talking about before. So point number 2, which is that turn, well, we're learning how to do that turn differently by stepping back, by doing that half step, right? So it's in a way of going slightly back, right, because it's this shoulder is moving backwards, but without necessarily our intent or the rest of our bodies from moving backwards. So I'm not stepping back. Again, I'm turning. I'm turning and stepping, right? So that it's reinforcing this idea that one of the core skills that we need to develop is this turning, right? Sidestepping, 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 turning, right? So that's a core skill. So being in the opponent's space, sidestepping, and using the front leg as a means of attack, right? That's what we find in the first two sections of the 13 postures.